morning, this is Jean here. Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for You. I'm at my sewing machine today, and I'm quilting. I've begun to quilt my Dresden Plate quilt that I was working on in the summertime. I haven't done a lot of quilting because 2020 has really sapped my creative juices, as I have addressed before. I was talking to my friend Jen the other day, and she and I are really creative people. We really need to be doing things, and even Jen was saying that she finds it odd. She's home all the while now, working from home and schooling her 7-year-old son, Parker. The other two do their own schooling. She's finding it very difficult with Parker. It's almost like 5 hours a day to school, a second grader. And she said she's at home, and before, being at home meant getting her machine out, her juki, and sitting down and being creative. She says, now I'm home all the while, I just don't feel like creating and sewing. We're both in the same boat, and as you know, my channel's taken on slightly different tone. Hopefully it will get a bit better back to sewing more. The last video I put up of Maxwell, who was getting his quad. If you haven't watched that, that was an awesome day. First time we've been out. I've been out in months and months and months. But I thought I'm going to sit down, and at the end of this video, I seriously, just last week, I had just videoed me ironing my quilt and sandwiching my quilt. I mean, it's boring, but I thought, oh, I'll video that. But then I thought, well, I'm just going to start me free motion quilting and quilting my Dresden Plate. Well, 2020 keeps on giving. I have set up my machine on the other side of my table, as you can see here. My juki is usually over there. I'm using my large brother machine, which my brother machine I used exclusively for about 5 solid years. This is a computerized machine. It's an annoys VQ3000 Dreamweaver machine. Awesome machine with a large extension bed, a nice large throat here. It's all computerized and it has all fancy stitches. This machine has over 29 million stitches on the stitch count. The technician couldn't believe it. He thought it was an embroidery machine. He said, wait, the VQ3000 isn't an embroidery machine, which would account for a lot of stitches. He said, and the salespeople said, yeah, she sews a lot. But I had retired my brother, sort of put it on a little bit of a sabbatical about 2 years ago when I got my juki. But my juki needs a service now, and the stitch quality isn't quite, it's probably dirty inside. So I'm gonna have to take that in, which is fine. So I have my backup, my large brother sewing machine here. Well, it had been all serviced beautifully. So I sit down. I know this machine like the back of my hand, right? I'm telling you. I sat down, put it onto free motion quilting. I couldn't find the free motion quilting foot because I had not used this other than in my old house. I haven't used it since we moved almost a year ago. So in this room, I had to find the free motion quilting foot. That was the beginning of like frustration. Sat down, I thought, where in the world is on my feet? Long story short, after 10 minutes of searching, I found the free motion quilting foot because I'm going to be free motion quilting. I'll put a picture up of what I've done so far. I'm free motion quilting my Dresden Plate blocks. There are 20. I keep saying there's 25. There's 20. It's 4 blocks across, 5 rows down. So there's 20 blocks here, and I'm quilting each Dresden Plate square block the exact same. And again, when I was basting it, I always say, I always start in the middle because that's the most difficult in working out. This is a good size queen size quilt. I'm not daunted whatsoever trying to quilt this on my domestic machine. A lot of people are like, oh, how do I quilt it? I go to the middle of my thing, and as my middle of my quilt, get the worst part done. Having said that, I didn't do that. I thought, I can't be bothered. That's really hard. So I started on the side. I started on the outside rows quilting it. I'm thinking, oh boy, I've really bitten off a lot. It's okay. And as you can see, this is a large quilt. It's a heavy quilt. You'll see later on when I put the footage up, I used 2 layers of batting. And I explain why. One was very thin and one was a normal batting. I wanted a very heavy quilt for the winter time coming up. But I'm using this like sort of springy looking quilt, but it's a heavy quilt. You'll see when I fold this up, when I'm done, whenever I'm done. So I have it supported. A lot of people are like, how do you quilt a huge quilt? I have a table behind me. I have my ironing board next to me. It is completely and utterly supported. And then what I do is I just concentrate on the bit right in front of me. I pin baste. I usually don't have a lot of tucks on the back. If I get 1 or 2, as I say before, it's fine. But I went to sit down. I thought, okay, I'm all ready. I'm going to quilt my quilt. Oh, I always do a test. I always do a test. You should always do that. So I made up a sandwich of my fabric, the 2 lots of, the backing fabric, 2 lots of the batting and the actual backing fabric, just a scrap. Because you should do a test scrap on the actual fibers that the sandwich that you're quilting, because each layer, each thickness will vary. So I did this. My machine, 29 million stitches, right? Beautiful, just serviced. Oh, I set it all up. Half hour later, frustrating, tension off, chaining, pulling, bobbin. Usually the litmus test is if the bottom of your quilt is not right, then you've threaded the top wrong. If the top is not right, then something's wrong with the bobbin. Usually that's sort of the first thing that you check. Well, new bobbin, new wound bobbin. I've threaded this machine. Come on, I've done it 29 million stitches worth. I threaded this machine. I had 2 different threads in here. I had a good thread. I had another thread. I had a different bobbin thread, and it is a mess. And now it's a computerized machine, and it's all the bells and whistles. So I'm going through the troubleshooting things. So it's like thread it. I'm like, okay, I've done that a million times. Rethread it, do the bobbin. The needle. So I changed my needle, right? So I had a quilting needle, a Schmetz quilting needle. So then I put in a jeans needle, okay, because it's heavy. Didn't work. I ended up, I've never ever used it. I don't even know why I have it. A leather needle, that seemed to work. So I have a leather needle, which is a thick needle, which with a larger eye, because my skip, in addition to loops and pulls and horribleness, I was getting skipped stitches. So that, again, my guy told me that could be the needle. So long story short, or long story even longer knowing me, the leather needle is working. I usually use Aurifil thread, which is an expensive thread, or Glide thread, which is an expensive thread. I ended up using an inexpensive Coats and Clarks. An inexpensive Coats and Clarks from Joann Fabrics, 100% cotton thread. It's not that expensive. It didn't like my connecting threads, and this machine is never not liked threads. I know a lot of machines, people say, oh, you know, my machine is bothered, but I've said it before, like my old machines from 50 years ago, you could use any thread. Now they're like picky and touchy, whatever. So it's a cheap thread. Well, it's an inexpensive thread. It's a good thread. I finally messed about manually, sort of, with the tension, although it's computerized. So I got a decent enough stitch, and I'll show you the quality of stitch. But I guess the reason I'm telling you that is I belong to a lot of Facebook quilting groups, and so many questions are, I'm so frustrated, I could throw my machine out the window, I just got it out of the box. I had this trouble with my mechanical Juki out of the box. I worked for 2 days on a brand new machine. I'm an experienced quilter. That machine was really bothering me. Once I tweaked it, once you get it to that sweet spot, my machine has been awesome for 2 years. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're a new quilter and you're wanting to quilt, not perhaps the size, this is a queen size quilt, and you might not have a big, huge machine like this. But what I'm saying is even with the finest of machines and an experienced quilter, it is frustrating at times. You know, I look at some of these tutorials and the professionals, they sit down and it's all lovely, it's perfect. And I think, well, it doesn't always go that way. What is it? The path to true love doesn't always run deep, or no, something like that. Always run smooth. This true love, I'm telling you. I wanted to throw everything out the window, out the 2020. So anyway, I'm going to just put my camera up to show you the little bit of quilting that I've done around the edges. That's so funny. When I'm sandwiching it, I'm saying, oh, I'm going to start in the middle, the most difficult. And I sat down here and I thought, oh, I can't do that. I can't do it. It's turning out real nice. It's turning out real nice. This is my backing fabric. It's pretty. And the stitch quality isn't perfect. It's not. But this is my quilt. It's going to hold together. It's good enough. I have a leather needle in it, because that's a lot. It's not a leather, but it's 4 layers, 2 layers of batting and fabric. So my stitch quality, but look at this, by all means, make a sample. Like I said, half an hour of frustration. So I guess I'm just saying, don't get discouraged. Just work at it, walk away from it. I did that. This has been here for 2 days. I'm thinking, oh my word, I can't do this. But, and it doesn't, the daunting part, or I should say, it doesn't daunt me to quilt such a large quilt. I'm working right in front of me. I'm just working in front of me. And in this case, if you have block by block, which in my case I have 20 blocks. That's it. I get 1 done. I think I have 4 done now. Awesome. I got 4 done. So I have 16 left. So that's, and 1 takes me however long. So I just concentrate on this 1. And then I have the sashing, which I'm actually doing the sashing not all the way, because I'll tell you why. I have my machine set up with my free motion quilting foot, which is, as you know, is just my needle going up and down. I'm the stitch regulator. I'm guiding it. I thought, I'm not changing anything. So I'm free motion quilting the sashing, which usually you'd put a regular foot on and just zip a straight stitch, right? With the feed dogs. I'm thinking, I'm not touching my machine. In fact, I'm going to leave it on all night. I'm not touching it again, because it was so very, very picky. I don't understand why. So I'm free motion quilting all of this straight stitching with a free motion quilting, trying to go straight. It's funny. Anyway, I guess I'm just saying, stick at it. Don't throw your machine away. Don't get frustrated. Walk away from it. Go have a drink. That's what I had to do. And my trusty brother is about 95% good at now. Oh, there's my phone. About 95% good. I don't know. It doesn't like 2020 either. But anyway, I'm just going to stick up just the little funny bits. It's not even funny. It's just me ironing, pressing my quilt, because this quilt top is sat for a couple months. Ironing it and then me sandwiching it together, and how I do that with my 2 lots of batting. Yeah, it's a heavy, heavy quilt here. But, oh, it's so pretty. It's nice and thick. So, yeah, and I'll just put up some still pictures of my actual quilting so far. Don't hold your breath, because I don't know how long this is going to take me. I'm just going to work at it steadily. But, yeah, back to my machine for today. All right, folks. Thanks for watching. All right, see ya. Bye. pin baste my quilt that I started, in the summertime. This is a Dresden Plate, fairly decent sized quilt. I did a patterned Dresden Plate, just a standard Dresden Plate, but then I mounted it on a white fabric behind. I have a video showing how I did that. I just cut out the piece of white fabric and like the blade look. These are not true Dresden blades. It's just appliqued onto there, and then this piece is appliqued onto the background square. I had put this quilt away because like most of you, 2020 is proving a bit of a bust, and I just couldn't wrap my head around working on this quilt. But I have been feeling a little bit better, and I thought, okay, I can at least get a start. I've finished the quilt top, and I folded it up and I put it aside just for the last few months. So now I'm just ironing it. I'm ironing it on my what was my old kitchen island here. I just had, we had moved, and we took our kitchen island with us. We have in my sewing room 2 islands, this one and this one. This is my old island that I sort of made into an ironing table because it's waist height, quite nice for me instead of bending over. It's quite large, as you can see. I should have it in the middle of the room because it's sort of scrunched up here, but that's okay. I have my ironing table and my cutting table here. So I'm just ironing this. Got to trim some threads and make it all nice and fresh. Like I said, it's just been folded up for a few months. This quilt is about, I believe, 25 blocks, 25 squares, and they are, I believe, I think they measure about 18 inches, 18-inch square blocks, maybe 20 inches, I'm not quite sure. I just started, no pattern, it's just a Dresden plate with the template for the Dresden plate. I just started making the Dresden plate itself, and then it sort of evolved from there. Mounting it on this white, and putting the white in the middle with the orange, and then mounting it onto the pattern. So it's pattern white pattern, which I quite like. I have a lot of traditional Dresden plates, and they are pattern mounted on a white background or a gray background or a black background, but I quite wanted I liked the fact that I could use my fat quarters. These are just fat quarters. Yes, they are 18-inch squares, fat quarter, the background, all these backgrounds. And then I just bordered it. I just did a little quarter stone, and then I bordered it in the white, sashed it and bordered it. And then it was a bit too plain, so I just out of the scraps of the fat quarters left over, I just made these. I just sewed them up a whole bunch together and put a second border around. So now I'm going to start pin basting. I don't spray baste, I pin baste on these 2 tables. I'll put the backing on these 2 tables, put them together. I will bring them out in the room so I can walk around it. Put the backing, lay the batting, and then start safety pin basting my quilt together. And then I have to figure out which machine I'm going to use, because my Juki TL 2200 QVP Mini has been a wonderful machine. It needs servicing because it keeps when I free motion quilt, which is being able to just stitch right, left, center, backwards, forward, sideways, it's shredding my thread. And I have changed the needle. I've put a larger needle in it. I've had the machine for nearly 3 years, so it does definitely need a servicing. So I may or may not be trying to quilt it on there, see how it goes, the stitch quality goes. If not, then I will free motion quilt this. Each block, each square, I'm going to quilt probably the exact same. Looking at it, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to quilt it. Maybe in like a loop pattern, or maybe even a circle going that way to add some movement. Maybe echo stitching this. I'm not quite sure, but I am going to be, because it's a traditional quilt and a traditional design made with happier fabrics, I am going to I am going to quilt every block the same, every square the same, and then do some maybe loop-de-loops in the white sashing, something like that. But yeah. Now that I haven't, as you know, if you've been following me, I haven't been sewing a lot, quilting I should say. I've been doing other things. My channel sort of turned into somebody said a lifestyle vlog. I'm like, oh my word, go figure. I'm a lifestyle vlogger, whatever the heck that is. Showing pictures of my family and my husband and stuff that we do. People seem to be interested. Why ever, I don't know. Yeah. So it's about a good, like I say, it's about a queen size quilt. It's fairly decent. I can do it though in my domestic machine. And I will concentrate just on one square at a time. Oh, I am using this, I'm in America here, it's called Faultless. It's not a spray starch, it's a finish. And it really does, as you can see, it's not stiffened it, but it's really sort of brought the fabrics back to life. If you pre-wash your fabric, sometimes they can lose that lovely finish from the quilt store. But fortunately, I'm blessed that I don't have any fragrance allergies or chemical allergies, because I know this is full of chemicals and full of fragrance, but I quite like it. But if you are, then obviously perhaps just a spritz of water. Obviously, you guys know what you're doing when you're ironing. So. Yeah, so we just finish up this. That's gotten all, yeah, it's all nice because it was just folded up forever. So now I'm going to work on it. So this is a work in progress, a WIP, and yeah, I'll let you know how I get on. Thanks. I'm still working on my Dresden plate here, and as you can see, I've come to the part where I'm going to be sandwiching my fairly decent sized quilts. I have two not quite the same size islands, my cutting table here and my ironing table here, which are two kitchen islands. And as you can see, one's just slightly larger, just a half an inch or so. But I've just pushed the two of them together. And of course, when you are sandwiching, you lay down, your backing, of course. And then your batting. Now, I had some older batting left over, or I should say a package of it. I usually use warm and plush batting from the Warm Company. I have to get it online. It's not readily available. Warm and Natural is what a lot of people use. But I had this leftover batting, or this roll of batting, that was from, I believe it was Walmart. It was a Patron batting. It was an inexpensive, 100% cotton batting. So I'm using that. But even though this is a spring-colored quilt, I want it fairly warm. So I'm using 2 layers of batting. So there's my top quilt top. There's my first layer of batting. And then this is a very thin batting. I'm not quite sure what batting this is. I'd had a large piece left over from a bolt, and it's not, you can almost see through it. It's a very thin batting. It's not wool, which I would have liked to have used a wool batting if I was using 2 layers of batting, a wool on top of a cotton, because when you quilt a wool bat, which is very light and thin, on top of a cotton batting, you really get a lot of definition. You really see the quilting, almost like on a polyester bat. But my wool bat that I have is only a twin size, and I needed a queen or a king for this size quilt. So I'm just using 2 layers of a cotton batting, one normal, regular, and then one fairly thin. As you can see that probably, you can see the backing sort of right through it. So what I have done is, a lot of people are like, oh, however do you quilt? I've always used either a kitchen table, dining room table, or my islands. This is how I do it. I've never pin basted. I use pins. I've never pin basted a quilt on the floor. I can't get up my back and my knees. I can't do that. So I've always used a table height dining room table. This is even better because it's higher, my kitchen island. And of course what I've done is that's my backing. There's my backing fabric. I am using a wide backing. I got this backing from, I believe, Missouri Star Quilt Company. I'm not quite sure what the brand is, but it's a nice wide backing. I didn't feel like, again, COVID brain, I did not feel like piecing my backing, so I don't usually use the extra wide backings. I've only used them a couple times, but they're wonderful, fantastic, no seaming, no messing about. I just laid my backing on my island. I layered it with my thinner batting, and then my regular batting, and then of course my quilt top. Now, as you can see, I err really on the large side. If it says, you know, use 2.5 yards of batting, or, you know, I will always get more. I don't mess about, because as any of you who have done a quilt sandwich, you realize that your fabric, your cotton, stretches. You start smoothing it from the middle on out, it stretches your fabric. That's the beauty of cotton, to get it really nice and nice and smooth and nice and flat. Now I can still, as you can see, smooth, and I don't want to be messing about with having 2 inches of batting. So this is a large bat. I believe both of these bats, both of the yardage would end up like almost a king size, because as you can see, I have quite a lot of batting left over here. But when I sandwich it all together and I cut it off here, I have enough for baby quilts or to piece my back together. So I really do err on the larger side. As you can see, I leave a lot of batting and backing, so I don't have to mess. You know, you get to that corner and it's a little bit skewed, and you're like, oh no. I've never ever had to repin because I've mismeasured my batting. As you can see, what I've done here is I've used my handy dandy clamps. These are just really heavy duty clamps I got at Home Depot, to hold just one end of my batting. Springy looking light bright quilt, but a nice weight to it. I'm looking forward to that. I think batting has gotten so much thinner. I don't know. I have quilts from 15 years ago, and the batting seems so much thicker. The feel of the fabrics. Maybe people will disagree with me, but boy, and I used to be able to get batting for $6, $7 a yard. It's going up a lot. I do buy my batting online in bulk, 25 yards or so, and then I just cut it off. Well, I was, but now with COVID, I've not been making a lot. But again, I was looking at this, and I was not pleased with I was not pleased with this batting. I have no idea, with all due respect to who's ever batting that is. As you can see, it is a light batting. It'd be like tissue paper. So then I put my warm and plush on that. So it's going to be a nice heavy quilt. So I'll keep you informed of how my quilt goes, wrestling it through my domestic machine, just one square at a time. I don't get discouraged. I don't get discouraged. I do one square at a time, and what I will do, and I will film that. I will start in the middle of my quilt. Oh, this is 20 squares. It's 4. I'm just looking at it. It's 4 across and 5 down, or 4, yeah. So I'll start in the middle, and I will just concentrate on one square at a time, and then I will work my way out, doing the hardest part of the quilt first, and then securing the sashings. So I will keep you informed.